As we light our chalice this morning, I will read from Yasmin Jackson's The Infinite Divinity. The chalice is lit, and in the flames, the memory of our trans and non-binary ancestors do a dance of freedom and liberation, reminding us that we are whole and holy. We are loved beyond all measure, and in our refusal to accept anything less, may we know we are rooted in the infinite divinity, not regulated to the outskirts or of the web of all existence, but enshrined at its core, in flesh with stardust and fairy dust, an intentional creation of space where our many gods live. Today's opening words come from Lily Eby. So first, as a start, raise your hands if you've seen The Danish Girl. Anyone in here? A couple of people, as I can see. So, fun fact, that film was actually based, albeit loosely, on Eby's life. Born in 1882, Eby was a Danish artist who was among the first people to receive gender-affirming surgery. This quote expresses what she felt throughout her journey. I think many of you who are trans and non-binary might relate to her words. Each step forwards to become the person we are makes it harder to go backwards, to return to the shadowy private world of closed doors and shuttered windows. The experience, the awakening of one's true self after being so long suppressed can never be adequately explained with language. I'm going to very quickly introduce all that will be on the stage and what exactly our panel is going to be about today. So today is about visibility, not just being seen, but also understood, respected, and allowed to exist fully without the fear of persecution or the humiliation and frustration of being thrusted under a microscope. During today's panel, we will explore identity, belonging, and navigating existence beyond the gender binary. So as I said before, my name is Yasmin. I identify as genderqueer and go by she, they pronouns. I will be your moderator for this panel. I would like to welcome our panelists to the stage. So I'm going to introduce at least our first panelist, who is currently on stage. Cameron. Cam identifies as genderqueer and goes by any pronouns. They were born and raised here in Texas, lived in California for 6 years, and then decided to move back home last winter. They joined the church in December. And I have Jocelyn also on the stage. Jocelyn identifies as trans and goes by she, her pronouns. She has lived here in Oak Cliff most of her life and transitioned as a member of this church. Welcome, Jocelyn, to the stage. I would also like to present Emma to the stage. Emma identifies as trans femme and genderqueer and goes by she, they pronouns. She is a musician, artist, designer, and friend. Please welcome our panelists, everybody. So, to get the panel started, let's start a little bit, I guess not really maybe simple, but let's just start a little basic. What does it mean to be trans or non-binary, especially beyond the binary? What does it mean to you guys?
In a word, vigilant. You have to be aware of yourself and your surroundings. And I've been thinking a lot about that over this week and how that includes the time that's spent exploring and finding yourself, because so much of gender presentation is emulation of others and observation of others and trying to fit in.
For me, it's about doing what it takes to be comfortable in your own skin, even if it's not what you were originally perceived to be.
For me, it's about, for lack of a better phrase, being different. It's about understanding that the world around you is kind of accustomed to one thing. It's built in a certain way, and how you present yourself and how you feel about yourself is just different. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing that you want to embrace, and I think you want to really understand more for yourself. For me, I didn't really understand my gender identity until like the last few years ago, and at first I was like, well, I don't really know what this is, but it seems interesting. But as I learned more about it, I thought, well, I feel this way about myself, and I felt this way about myself for quite a while. And at this point, I'm not really concerned about what other people think about me. I'm concerned about how I feel about myself and how I choose to accept myself at this point. So.
Now that's actually a really good lead-in to my next question. How did you come about to understand your identity or recognize your identity?
So for majority of my life, I was assuming myself just as a boy, as a man, but I knew I was queer. I knew that I was at least attracted to people outside of just opposite sex, opposite gender, whatever. And when I met my partner, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but when I met my partner at the time, he was trans. And he basically described to me like what it means to be a trans man, what it means to really be on a different side of the so-called binary. And he was describing how he felt, and I said, oh, I feel that way about myself, but I'm not trans. And he was like, well, I'm sorry to say this, but so I started thinking, well, wait a minute, am I trans? Like, what does that mean? And my definition of trans was you're one gender and then you're just another gender. And that's what I assumed. But I did my research. I thought about it for a very long time. I asked myself, am I a boy? Well, I don't really feel like a boy. Am I a girl? Well, I don't really feel like a girl. Am I non-binary? Like, I guess that fits. But like, am I part of gender? Well, not really. I feel like I'm outside of gender. I'm more agender. The term agender is kind of not representing one gender or another or any gender in specifically. It's just kind of there. And that's kind of how I feel about myself. I don't really subscribe to one group or anything, masculine or feminine. I'm just who I am at this point.
Yeah, I have a partner that's agender, and the way that they describe it is that when they're wearing a dress, it's not because they feel like a girl. It's because they want to wear a dress. When they wear pants, it's not because they are feeling like a boy. It's because they want to wear pants. It's like literally just moving beyond gender. For myself, I don't think we have enough time for the glacial pace that it took me to actually unpack everything growing up in a rural area without like real access to internet, at least not until I was in college, and just knew kind of conceptually that gay men existed, but had never heard of a gay woman. And didn't know that there were jokes. There was jokes in pop culture, but it was kind of this other thing. It wasn't really. It was this thing that weird people do, and it was always the butt of the joke, and it was never anything that I felt a particular like draw towards. And I was masked a good bit for a lot of reasons, but one of which being that I mostly, liked. I only ever understood myself as liking girls growing up, anyway. But now looking back, I liked girls in a very, very sapphic way. Like like lots of phone calls talking about how we're both looking at the moon right now. It's the same moon, and we're both under it. A lot of that nonsense and things like that. But really, like I've joked a lot that like if I had been on Tumblr earlier, I probably would have saved me 12 years of my life. Just because there were so many people that went out ahead of me and kind of charted the path and figured it out. And I mean, I think it's a really important like frame of reference that my journey started before gay marriage was legal in the United States, and that was just over 10 years ago. I mean, that's nothing. And so this idea that even I mean, I remember listening on my little like transistor radio. It sounds like I'm 3,000 years old, but I just happened to like vintage radios. I was listening on the radio to which one is that? Is that Schofield? Which one's the gay marriage one? And I was exploring at the time, but was not calling it trans, was not calling it really anything, was just being scared and being closeted and being closeted even to myself. So that process was just one of little bitty baby steps. I didn't go by anything but my I call it my Christian name now, not my dead name, my Christian name. I went by my Christian name at my appointment when I was going to get HRT. Because I was still just like not ready.
I also had an interesting journey going from exploring sexuality to exploring gender. Figured out I wasn't straight in high school. Settled on bi in community college as the label and flag that best fit me. And then came the lockdown. And yeah, a lot of time alone, a lot of time alone with your thoughts.
And that little secret drawer.
That little secret drawer is no longer locked. And actually, it was about New Year's 2021 that it really clicked.
All right.
And this church community were the first people I came out to.
Awesome.
You can clap. In general, when I tell people about this place, I say that the first time I came, which was like 3-something years ago, I popped in and it didn't stick, but I did come through, and I've described it as like everyone was like, "Oh my God, we've practiced for this. Wait, there's a trans person here. Wait, we practiced for this. Hi, my pronouns are, and your pronouns are." And it was endearing. It's very sweet.
So, something that, well, actually, really both Emma and Cam brought up is the concept of, agender and being outside of gender. Now, with that, framework, do you feel that gender is a spectrum, or do you really think it's more something else?
So we're all used to thinking of gender as boy, girl, just off the default. I mean, gender reveal parties of you have a boy or a girl. And for me, I used to think that gender was A or B. Then I thought it's between A and B. And now I'm thinking it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, O, P, Sigma, Alpha, Beta, Gamma. It's whatever. It's everything. We say spectrum. I think of gender as a cloud. It's just poof. It's a lot of stuff. We condition ourselves to think of things in certain terms because it's easier to understand for us, which is smart. It's understandable for how we have to learn new things. But at a certain point, we have to kind of use past our reptilian brains and think into our critical thinking of, well, what if it's more than this? What if it's more than just girl, boy? What if it's more than just one thing or the other in between? What if it's everything? What if it's everything out there? I don't really, when I talk about my interest, I don't really think of it as masculine interests of sports, auto racing, whatever. I think of it as, I like cars. I like NASCAR. I like football. I like basketball. But I also like drag race. I also like baking. I also like gardening. Like, I just like a lot of things, and I don't really try to put it in a category, because at the end of the day, when you put it in that category, people will start attaching you to that category as well, and think it makes it easier for them, but it makes it more complicated, in my opinion.
Yeah. I visualize it as gender is the entire hex code spectrum.
It's also an observation. There's an anecdote that I'd like to give about one of my early drawing classes in college, where we were shown two drawings of a Picasso painting. One looked very amateurish and just kind of like you could see what they were going for, and the other was a lot more accurate. Mm-hmm. And the professor asked if we could guess what the difference between the two, and the obvious guess was, oh well, this must be the first day art student, and this is the graduate student. She was like, no, they were both first day students. Mm. Well, then this person must have been doing art their whole life. Nope, they were just And it turned out that the difference was that the one that looked amateurish was shown the painting and said to draw the painting, and the other one was shown the painting upside down and asked to draw it right side up. Oh. And so that little perspective change made them pay closer attention and not fill in the gaps and not fill in the details and not it be this broad stroke of a oh, that's a face, but like literally, oh, the face tips in like this and that kind of stuff. And that's so to me, to bring it to the question, is gender is an observation. Gender is in the eye of the beholder, because I can think I'm serving fish and someone can think not. And it's this moment where, and that goes for anyone. I mean, that goes for anyone where you might not perceive yourself as anything, out of the ordinary, but because people are so focused, on making judgments to people, they're critical, and then there's, the classic projection cycle and that kind of stuff. But gender itself is a collection of data points that you look at and you say, I think it's that, and it's just the calculation that you make before you decide whether you use they or she or him default to someone. But it's not real, I mean, it's all fake. You don't have to do any of it.
That's a very liberating concept, because for a long time I've always heard the gender spectrum, and you got male on one side and female on the other, and thinking of it as a cloud, it is a very liberating concept. Now, moving on to our next question. And I think this is something that everyone here can relate to. How do you navigate comfort and belonging, both in your body and in gender spaces?
Can you say the question one more time? I'm sorry.
How do you navigate, how do you feel belonging or navigate that comfort and belonging, both in your body and in gender spaces? How do you find that community, I guess, or the identity?
Personally, this may come as a surprise to some of you, but my mantra is take up space if you're queer. I haven't been able to wear my battle vest a lot recently because it's got some holes that I need patching, but that's the main thing across the back of my battle vest. Because like I said, as I was coming out in 2018, 2019, I was still a novelty to a lot of even my very, liberal, even leftist friends that had not ever met someone that was genderqueer or anything like that. And just at a certain point, you just kind of got to show up and pretend that you belong there. Mm-hmm. And that there's the overlap of people that are transgender and people that are autistic or some sort of neurodivergence is like damn near a circle with two little slivers on either side of it. And so it's already hard enough to navigate like social circles without feeling like everyone's looking at you and trying to figure you out. And so you just kind of got to just get in there. And the real answer is Discord.
Um, I have a lot of identities for myself to not help myself per se, but help other people like start somewhere with certain things. I mean, overall the one everybody sees, of course, is race, black, and the intersection between queerness and blackness is more open recently. It's been more open recently, but in the past, it's been very, you know, if you're in a black barbershop and you have masculine centered only conversations, you don't get to really talk about things that might be on the queer spectrum or things that might not be masculine or per se. And just the amount of masking I have to do on a daily basis when I'm just sometimes even like going to the store is ridiculous to me. Like my nails painted beautiful, but like I have to go to the gym next week and I'm already a little concerned about how people are going to perceive me at my gym. And it's people that look like me, but they might not identify as me because they're people who have been grown up in very traditional black spaces. And I don't think there is an intersection between how people assimilate into spaces right now and how they're kind of losing sense of their own identity. And for me, I had to do the opposite. I had to work to kind of understand who I was more and kind of fight the urge to quote unquote fit in for certain things. I think of it too as take up space. Queerness should take up space. Blackness should take up space. Neurodivergency should take up space. We're supposed to fit in all these ways, but like when you fit in, you kind of forget who you are. And I don't want to forget who I am. I've spent 25 years hiding who I was, and now I'm happy where I am at. And I don't want to lose that sense again. It's like going back into the closet, for lack of a better phrase. People are very afraid of having to go back into the closet in a sense, and I'm not going back, regardless of what happens in the world at this point. I've already come to terms with that. I know people in my life are very worried about that, but I really don't give a damn because that's who I am right now. And it's just something that I feel should be more promoted in that sense.
Jocelyn, got anything?
I'm still wary in a lot of gendered spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly due out of a legal wariness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we live in a very hostile environment, and I think that maybe even that is an understatement for a lot of different people now. You know, just thinking about going to the store, you know, do you have to figure out a way to hide who you are, you know? And I can, you know, just thinking about what Cam was saying about black spaces traditionally, it's a very masculine or very gender binary oriented space for sure.
Well, we're very privileged in Dallas that we have such a vibrant queer culture that predates Stonewall, and that even, you know, when I was seeking community as a person that refused to accept myself as trans or as a woman or anything of that sort, I always found acceptance with the lesbian community in the neighborhood and all that stuff. And part of what I said, you know, I made a cheeky joke about Discord, but I can tell you, I've talked to some girls that live in rural Oklahoma that literally girl to them means that their avatar is pink on Discord because that's literally the only way that they get to express it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to take a moment for those folks because it's not, I mean, I spent most of my closeted time in Denton, which now is it's a you know, a bastion of queer, like their pride is incredible. And the pride may have been incredible back then. I don't know, because I wasn't brave enough to go out and see.
I can second internet spaces as a welcoming ability to build community, but with limitations.
Yeah.
Due to its nature.
Yeah. Trying to find, again, belonging in a very diverse world right now is very challenging, and we have to do what we can to try and carve out those spaces and take space. You know, that is very important. And trying to find belonging and comfort kind of lends a little bit into the next full topic. And I want to get to this last bit because I know we have a little bit of time left. Allyship. What does real allyship look like? And when do you find, or like, how do you decide to have the energy to explain or justify who you are? How do you decide if it's even worth that energy?
True allyship is being able to call me a dude without apologizing. Just literally, I know that you say dude to everyone. Literally, you don't have to say it. Like, you don't have to apologize. Allyship is not saying, how do you look better in that dress than I would? Which is a real thing that someone said to me. And they were trying their best. I drive for Uber. For a few years, I was driving full time. Allyship is not someone asking me basically, to kind of answer your question, the way that I deal with it a lot is understanding and trying to provide some perspective that you're asking me about my medical history. You're asking me about my medical history. You're asking me about my medication. You're asking about things with my doctor. No, thank you. Please don't. And I literally had someone one time tell me, it's okay, I voted for Kamala. And I was like, okay, well, I still don't feel comfortable talking to a blackout drunk person about my medical history. That's not helping, you know. Allyship is about to mean a lot of different things, I think, unfortunately. I was in a space last night or a couple nights ago with where I was the only trans person there, and I started talking about my bug out plan, and I just brought it out. I brought it up where I was like, yeah, you know, I've got one where if I've got a day, I've got one where if I've got a week, I've got one where, and I realized that this was like the first time I talked about that outside of like a trans space or with another trans person, and it just struck me really, really like hard that they didn't know what I was talking about, that they didn't know, like, even with everything, like, I don't really have anywhere to go. I don't have family. I don't have, the family that I have are the people that I know here. Yeah. The people that I know in Dallas, where I've lived my whole life. I'm personally of the ilk that I don't intend to leave unless I have to. And so if I'm leaving, I'm going. Like, it's like runaway time. Yeah. And, you know, I joke a lot about, like, why didn't anyone tell me that being trans was hard? Like, it seemed like it would be so easy. All you have to do is be a girl. It's that easy, right? There's nothing in the way. And I feel like it's in some way some sort of karmic justice for the, you know, I mean, just taking responsibility for the xenophobia and stuff that came up when I was a teenager towards folks, you know, after 9/11, and just, you know, the media landscape was so different. It was so much easier. I was a kid, but just took it up hook, line, and sinker. And now I see those exact same tactics of this just kind of, you know, that's not working enough anymore. They're still doing that to free Palestine. They're still doing that. And that's not working enough, so they have to hit us too. And I just need to pee, please.
I can put allyship as succinctly as this. If I gotta whoop somebody's behind, are you gonna help me? If I have to go and fight somebody who is being transphobic, are you gonna help me? Because if you're gonna stand on the side, you're being complicit in the violence that is being perpetrated against me. There is no I'm not going to pick a side. I'm going to be outside of this. When the civil rights movement happened, black people had to march with themselves, but we had to basically figure out who was going to be allied with us. White people were with them marching. They knew that the violence would be perpetrated against them. They knew that they would be killed. They knew that they would be firebombed. They knew that they would be threatened. They knew that they'd be hosed down. But they still chose to do it anyway. This is what's going to happen with trans people and queer people and any disadvantaged minority in general. If I'm going to have somebody come and threaten me or say something to me, and I have to whoop somebody's ass, you're going to help me, because I can do it myself, but it would be easy if you were there too. I've been having this internal conversation with myself because my family has said that they're allies, and I believe them. But I believe that my brother is the only one with true allyship in that sense. My family is older. My parents are older, yes. And they're working to learn pronouns. They're working to learn what the terms are. Like, they're working to make sure that they don't say the wrong pronouns or whatever to me, which, again, I have any pronouns. It doesn't really matter to me. But my thinking is, when I came out to my brother as non-binary, and he asked me, what do you want to be called? I said, well, I'm still your sibling. Like, we're still Bubbas. We call ourselves Bubba. And I just mentioned, like, I don't have any specific pronouns. I can't be misgendered in that way. And he said, bet. Well, if you need somebody, I'm here for you. And my brother gets angrier than I do in certain instances. So I know if he has to go to work, he'll do it. And I know if something happened to me, he would be there for me. And that's what gives me a lot of solace that I have just one example of an ally. A lot of my friends are the same way. And I know that people in this church are the same way too. We've had congregants mention if we have to go out on the street, then they will be there to put themselves in front, because that's what this is supposed. It's what it means. It's what it is. You have to be prepared to take the cost of what we would take at the same time when you're putting yourselves there as well. Because it's one thing to just say, I know this person's gender identity. I know how they present themselves. I know their pronouns in this. That's cool. But, like, one, those things are flexible because gender fluidity exists and gender queerness in general. But two, I'm not going to be able to tell the person who's going to punch me in the face what my pronouns are. That doesn't matter. What's going to matter is, am I going to be able to defend myself and keep myself safe, or are you going to be able there to help me? That's the key point that I really feel.
I had shared in our group chat too, and maybe we can make it available on there's a really great, it's a paperback book that was purposely paperback for the author's intent was so that it could be as cheap as possible, so you could buy multiple copies, hand it out, and it's called a Illustrated Guide to They Them Pronouns. It came out in 2018 and 2019. It's a 20-page comic book. Purchase a copy, read it, pass it to a friend. Or that you can also find it online. You can find it online places. It's been published for a long time. You're not really hurting anyone. I mean, that taught me things about the way, things, just little things in language about, my pronouns are, not, I don't use pronouns. My pronouns are,
All right, so with that, we're going to close our panel. This is a topic that we can talk for long times about because gender is so vast, it's so complicated, and it's a societal construct. I remember learning about that in anthropology. That it is a gender construct and every culture in the world presents gender differently. So this is a fascinating topic that at a later date, definitely we can get a lot more into it. I would love to
stick around for talkback.
Yeah, we can talk about it more and talk back for sure.
I was going to say, if you want to ask us questions during talkback, please do. I'm going to be there. So
let me As we're closing our panel, let me leave you with the following message. Being an ally, as we just talked about, it's not just using the correct pronouns. It is about actually being there, standing up for us when we are under threat from violence or insidious policies from a hostile government. Offer a space to freely exist without interrogating us, and encourage others to live out their truth. There is no right way to be trans or non-binary, and it is crucial for us to have the space to express ourselves so the world can see the plethora of ways to live beyond the binary. Now, please join me in thanking our panelists for their participation today. As our service comes to a close, I will recite the following words from Maya Kobe. Mixter Kobe is a non-binary author and illustrator who is best known for Genderqueer, a memoir, a graphic novel-style nonfiction book that explores our younger years, identity, and coming out to loved ones. This quote comes from Genderqueer. As I pondered a pronoun change, I began to think of gender less as a scale and more as a landscape. Some people are born in the mountains, while others are born by the sea. Some people are happy to live in the place they were born, while others must journey to reach the climate in which they can flourish and grow. Between the ocean and the mountains of the wild forests, that is where I want to make my home. It is now time to extinguish our chalice. I will recite the words from Let Us Be That Circle. As we extinguish this flame, may we carry its warmth into the world, not as a memory, but as a promise that you deserve, my trans, non-binary, and cisgender kindred, a place where your voice matters, where your laughter is treasured and your silence is honored. You deserve a circle that sees your scars and your strength, your doubts and your radiance, and holds them all with care. Let us be that circle for one another, a community of fierce welcome, wild grace, and radical hope. Go knowing you belong here. You always have.